But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Be kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. How's everybody doing today, John? Got a few interesting options this week. And now I'm trying to find them. Got various bits of Starman bullshit. Kids don't know their poor dad is secret millionaire. What happens apparently will not shock us, at least it doesn't say so. We've got Israel is more evil than Hamas. Hassan's take, and Tim Pool lies about Destiny. That's some Destiny bullshit that sounds like it might be good value. Then there's also, here's some vintage bullshit. Famous 1957 U.S. anti-communist propaganda. When the communists take over America. And Caleb Muppet watching wokeism destroy American socialist groups, a first-hand account. And from Pim Tool, Matt Walsh Am I Racist film finally fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Media blackout fails! When the best thing you can say about how a movie's performing is that it's on Rotten Tomatoes at all, that doesn't really speak very highly of it, I have to say. That actually sounds like it kind of got its ass kicked on Rotten Tomatoes. Deservedly. Because, I mean, a Twat Mulch movie about asking whether he's racist, I mean, you don't need a feature-length film for that. The answer is yes. I mean, obviously. Then we've still got quite a bit left of Don't Be Normal. Ja, also bitte. Ja, also wie gesagt, es kommt ein bisschen drauf an. Ja, also es kommt vor allem auf die Ergebnisse an. Und es kommt ja eben auch darauf an, was es zu übersetzen gilt. Aber es ist branchenüblich, nur in die eigene Muttersprache zu übersetzen. Hello, Riveroon. I think we'll start some of this Destiny bullshit.
Out of the 800 that were not IDF civilians, okay, former IDF, doesn't matter, okay?
Former IDF.
A decent chunk of them.
Well, I mean, Destiny just shows it's so easy to find that hilarious if you really don't give a fuck about any of it.
Also murdered by the Israeli Defense Forces. Israel is infinitely more evil than Hamas ever could be.
I mean, obviously.
Crazy. So then he starts making up lies, lying about me, lying about my decisions. It's been a month or so I can't remember the specific things he posted.
Why would I show it on my stream and then lie about it when everybody can literally watch me doing it on?
Well, I don't know, and I don't know if that's the case here, but it wouldn't be the first time. I mean,
stream. The issue is that you haven't blacklisted her. That was the point. God, he's lying, trying to accuse me of lying.
People are lying.
I mean, yeah, Tim Pool is completely full of shit, but so's Destiny, and I absolutely he has lied about shit that he streamed that anyone can just look up. So, I mean, I don't rule out the possibility, certainly.
Hassan claims the IDF killed a good chunk of October 7th victims.
No longer even using the...
Yeah, well, okay, let's just note here. The Israeli media broke that story. It has it has been months before it made it into any kind of mainstream English language media. The ABC, Australia's state broadcaster, months after this story broke, did a story on it like last week. But yeah, I mean, this has been extremely well documented. It's hard to say exactly how many people were killed on October 7th as a result of the mass Hannibal order, because Israel destroyed all the physical evidence and didn't even allow their own forensics people. The IDF has a forensics unit who are specifically trained to gather evidence and analyze scenes like this. And they were begging, according to the Israeli media, to be allowed onto the scene as soon as it was safe to do so. And Netanyahu would not let them, and instead sent Zaka, the creepy-ass grifter rapist cult, who know absolutely nothing about forensics and have a religious objection to forensics, to fuck around with the bodies. Yeah, I mean, he's totally full of shit. Now, I mean, of course, Tim Pool is full of shit, too, so, I mean, 50-50, I give that.
Hail threats. Okay? But the IDF aren't hiding inside of schools and hospitals? Yes, they are. What are you talking about? The IDF headquarters is quite literally next to a mall in Tel Aviv. What the f*** are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, they specifically... The thing to know about kibbutzim as well, the reason they are where they are is that they were supposed to be a dual civilian military thing. They all have armories. And, in fact, I mean, Israel puts all sorts of, like, military shit in the middle of civilian areas. Like, I mean, the Ministry of Defense, which is explicitly under the Geneva Conventions a military objective, that is right in the middle of a residential neighborhood in Tel Aviv. I mean, like, literally... Everything that he's saying here is completely true and uncontroversial. And then you have the fact, I mean, they are using Palestinian hospitals in Gaza as military positions. Also a war crime.
There's a higher combatant density inside of Israel than there is in Gaza.
I'm pretty sure just definitionally that's just not true. If for no other reason, because the Negev is just mostly hugely empty space. But...
Yeah, that's not how you would measure that. It's not... The point is, the percentage of the population who is either actively in military service or is on reserves to be doing and can end up doing military service at a moment's notice, or as part of other armed organizations of the Israeli state, is probably higher. I don't know the exact number. I know the number of IDF on active service is actually relatively low. They have been making extensive use of reserves to fill in the gap.
Second flip. Fuck, I don't have the copy paste anymore, so.
The entire country is a reserve.
Did I accidentally search for this? Oh, I did.
She then goes into the other side of the equation. And notice, he talked about direct victims, humanize them, right? On the Israeli side, young people at a music festival, sexual violence that was unspeakable.
Yeah, and which it's worth noting, much like the bullshit claims about Haitian refugees eating people's pets, there's absolutely no evidence that any of that happened. There's not even allegations that it happened. Nobody in nearly a year has come forward and said this happened to them, despite the fact that the Israeli government has made it a priority to convince people that it did happen, because it is a big part of justifying the genocide.
Okay? That Hamas did, right?
Cringe.
Now let's hear how she talks about the Palestinians. Now, 1,200 Israelis were murdered on October 7th. 1,200 Israelis total. I believe around 400 of them were already were IDF, so they were enemy combatants. Out of the 800 that were not IDF, out of the 800 that were...
I mean, and a large number were also other armed services. Cops, border police.
Were not IDF, civilians, okay? Former IDF, doesn't matter, okay?
Former IDF?
Well, that's such an impressive fake laugh, Destiny, just to add to the other things that are fake about you.
Oh, what a great one. We should call every single Palestinian death from now on jihadists, I guess.
What do you mean from now on? That is literally what the media do when it's Palestinians. They will literally not even call dead 3-year-olds children. They will use some other language in order to avoid acknowledging. So yeah, what you're talking about is literally what's already done. The difference is that actually in the case of Israel, a huge percentage of the population is either in the military or is on the reserves and can be in the military at a moment's notice. To the extent, I mean, there's like this really just nauseatingly schmaltzy song by a group called Hatikva Shesh, who specialize in really schmaltzy fucking nationalist music. And the whole play, it's called Superheroes, Giborei Al. And this point of it is that all Israelis are superheroes because they go to the reserves. Now, of course, it's bullshit to say that everybody's in the reserves. That's not true. But a substantial percentage of the population is. And then even within that population, the number of people who are armed, who are trained in the use of weapons, and have weapons privately, or in the kibbutzim they have armories, and will, be combatants, if the situation arises, is also quite significant, especially in the settlements in the Gaza envelope.
If they're Muslims. What an unhinged comment. What an unhinged comment. Oh my God.
Well, yeah, it's so unhinged to point out facts.
Okay, former IDF, doesn't matter, okay? Not a majority, but a decent chunk of them were also murdered by the Israeli Defense Forces.
And one thing to say is we can't really say how many it was. We can say there are a small number that we can say for sure because there's like video evidence of it. There is a huge number where it's just completely unclear because the physical evidence was just completely and systematically destroyed before anyone could do a proper investigation, and Israel, of course, will not allow an independent investigation.
I said this before, I hated that Rabbani got away with seeming more intelligent and more measured in the conversation that I had because Finkelstein was there, but Rabbani is also a massive, probably anti-Semitic hack.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is very cute, Destiny. I love it when people equate my culture with Zionist mass murderers.
Who also tried to do the same thing. This is why I asked so many...
Who tried to do the same thing that the Israeli media have done. Like, this is not controversial at this point. We have senior Israeli military officers on record, on camera, saying that this was a mass Hannibal incident, that they'd never seen anything like it before. The Haaretz, like the only decent, halfway decent newspaper in the entire Zionist regime, has actually uncovered the written orders stating it. Yeah, like, yeah. This is, I mean, so he's just sort of pissed off at Hassan for pointing out things that are extremely well established at this point because Destiny isn't familiar with them.
Many times. How many do you think were killed by the IDF? What percentage? Give a guess. What do you think?
Well, that's the problem. Why should we give a guess? We know that it's probably a lot. We know that there was completely indiscriminate fire. There are eyewitnesses who point out there was a huge amount of crossfire going on. I mean, and that the IDF was firing completely indiscriminately at residential areas, like Israeli residential areas in the kibbutzim, like knowing that there were people, you know, knowing that there were Israelis in the buildings, they were firing tanks at them, which is where a lot of the major destruction came from. We can't say for sure exactly how many it was. We may never really know. Because you'd need the physical evidence to do that, and we don't have it. Israel literally buried the cars. There is that whole mass of cars with extensive roof damage. Clearly, they were taking direct hits from something that was coming from above, which would not be the Palestinians, because they had small arms. They were carrying, like, AKs and RPGs. And Israel, supposedly for religious reasons, they buried all the cars. So, the chances of getting any kind of physical evidence off of them is pretty limited.
I think it's because this talking point is still pervasive today. Hassan probably thinks half or more were killed by the IDF.
Well, it's not impossible.
The talking point. When he says...
that's the talking... do you realize... He's just sitting here, claiming... He doesn't seem to be aware, or if he is aware, he's just being very dishonest, that this is literally that this is literally what the Israeli media have been doing. They've been investigating this for months, and they're still finding out new shit nearly a year later about all of the things that all the deaths the IDF was responsible for, to the extent that actually... Everybody in the Gaza division who is in charge on October 7th is supposed to resign. They're only staying in office now because there's a whole shit fight over who gets to be the Minister of Defense, because Yoav Gallant, the ghoulish fuck, who always kind of looks like they just dragged him out of the pub after last orders and he's 5 pints in, he and Netanyahu are basically not on speaking terms and haven't been for months. Netanyahu wants to put somebody in there who is more inclined to do things exactly as he wants them, and essentially this is holding up these resignations. And the resignations are because basically everybody recognizes that the IDF shit the bed on October 7th on multiple levels.
A good chunk, he means half. So the 800 civilian deaths, he's going to say that maybe 400 got killed by the IDF. And he's going to cite to that one Haaretz article that talks about how on the final day or two of fighting, I think on October 9th or 10th or whatever, that I think some of civilians might have been killed.
Yeah, that's not what they said. Oh, look, somebody in the chat mentioned the Hannibal Directive.
10 or 12 might have been killed as the IDF was coming back through to try to clear out Hamas, because Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and other Palestinian fighters were holed up basically in kibbutzes and in homes and stuff.
Kibbutzes. Fucker.
And it's possible that some Israeli fire killed some civilians that were being...
it's more than possible. We know for a fact that they did. We have eyewitnesses, Israeli eyewitnesses, since that probably matters more to Destiny and his fucking audience than anyone else, who say that it definitely did. We have senior Israeli military officers, colonels, saying, yeah, we got an order to shoot everything, every vehicle that was headed toward the Gaza Strip. And we have footage of the fucking, of the Apache helicopters doing exactly that.
That were being fought alongside some of the invaders, I guess. This has nothing to do with the Hannibal Directive whatsoever.
Yeah, it has everything to do with the fucking Hannibal Directive, unless you're claiming that now the Israeli media are lying, unless you're claiming that senior Israeli military officers are lying, unless you're claiming Haaretz fabricated a document, fabricated actual evidence of the Hannibal directive being activated. Like, I mean, I'm not sure if it was written or it was on recorded radio communications, but they published that just a couple of weeks ago.
Whoever it is, anybody that brings it up in this context is completely has nothing to do with that.
He's just completely lying to his audience here. I mean, although that gives him credit for more knowledge than he probably has. But, I mean, what Hassan is saying here is well established. Like, it is not controversial at this point. It's just that it has hardly been discussed in English language media, apart from, like, the Australian Broadcasting Company did a piece on it last week, months after the story broke in Israel.
Doesn't matter, okay? Not a majority, but a decent chunk of them were also murdered by the Israeli Defense Forces, okay? Hamas and the Palestinian resistance groups that operated alongside Hamas.
Palestinian resistance groups.
Well, yeah, that's what they are.
The second largest one was Palestinian Islamic Jihad, by the way. So the Palestinian resistance groups.
And criminal elements.
Like, okay, so you're just sort of going to repeat that. Like, if you want to argue that they're not, that what they're doing is not resistance to occupation, maybe actually try to fucking make that case. I don't think you'd actually succeed. But so he doesn't. He just goes, oh, they're resistance groups. Well, yes, they fucking are.
That also broke through the boundary, the Gaza border
And
fence.
criminal elements. So it's an effort to downplay...
well, no, it isn't an effort to downplay anything. It's facts. There were 145 breaches in the ghetto perimeter, total. There was no control over who was getting out. People were streaming out. Yeah, I mean, with some of the videos, some of their first videos on October 7th, that were just random people, filming themselves walking on the land their grandparents were kicked off of, and weeping tears of joy. Huge numbers of people who had nothing to do with anybody got out. So, I mean, that's not downplaying anything. That's just, again, stating a fucking fact.
Hamas as much as possible, or at least the Palestinian involvement in the Gaza Strip. So it was resistance fighters and then some criminals, I guess, right?
Well, I mean, no, mostly random people. And, this is...
And criminal elements that also broke through the boundary, the Gaza border fence, were responsible for...
Of course he's obsessed with saying jihad. He's racist.
The majority of the civilian deaths and the majority of the IDF deaths. Okay? For sure. Like, that's not an unfair estimation at all. Okay?
Oh god, his suck-ups in the fucking chat. God, you're so good at breaking this down, Destiny. He hasn't broken anything down. All he's doing is mocking Hassan for pointing out facts.
For sure. Like, the majority elements that also broke through the boundary, the Gaza border fence, were responsible for the majority of the civilian deaths and the majority of the IDF deaths. Okay.
This is why I like it. This is why I like to ask somebody. Give me like an approximate percentage. I'm not going to nail you down. I'm not going to say like ask me like.
Well, but you're asking. It's a ridiculous question to ask because the only answer is we can't know for sure. The physical evidence was destroyed. It will probably take historians reconstructing like oral history interviews and opening the archives decades from now to get at the non-public classified internal after-action reports from the various units involved in order to really get any kind of idea just what percentage the IDF was responsible for. I mean, it would be ridiculous to see. He wants him to give a number because he knows there's no backing up any number, actually. So no matter what number he gives, he can mock it one way or another. No matter, if he says like 50% or something like that, there's nothing that actually tells us it was 50%. It's not clear, so we can mock that. But so Hassan is actually doing the right thing here and saying you really can't say. It would be pure speculation because the evidence was destroyed. It was never properly investigated. And so he's mocking him for that.
17.48. But the problem is like he has so much wiggle room here to where if you were to confront him on it in a public space.
Now, why does he have wiggle room? Why don't we have a detailed forensic accounting of the scene, of the physical evidence. I mean, the UN were actually calling for an independent inquiry. They set up a body to do it. The forensic unit of the IDF were begging to go in there. So why is it that we have so much wiggle room? Like like it's a favor to Hassan that there wasn't a proper investigation.
He would say like majority. Like I think like 90% were killed by Hamas.
So now we're taking the piss out of what he would say. I mean, he didn't say that though. I think if he would say that, he would have said that.
And the invaders, but then like to his audience, they understand as like maybe 51%, maybe 52%. Like almost half were probably killed by Israel.
Okay.
Which is by no means impossible. There's nothing ruling that out. In fact, I mean, you have large numbers of people who were burnt in ways that could not have been done with the weapons that the Palestinian fighters had on them, but would be consistent with weapons that are regularly in use by the Israeli military.
For sure. Like that's not an unfair estimation at all. Okay? On the other side, since October 7, Israel has killed more than 40,000 Palestinians. The overwhelming majority of 40,000 Palestinians that Israel has murdered, okay, are women, children, and the elderly.
Do you think he'll give any estimate at all, number percentage-wise, of how many might have been fighters? Any estimate?
Well, there's no evidence that Israel is even going after fighters. But nobody, who gives a shit? They very explicitly said that they were trying to exterminate the civilian population. Each time it comes up, they say it again. And they almost only say it in Hebrew, so pricks like this can pretend that they didn't hear it.
At all, you think?
Think about that. Think about the numbers.
I mean,
Lancet estimations put it at 185,000 once the dust is settled. Right? That's
185,000 deaths. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yes. That's what one of the leading peer-reviewed medical journals concluded as a. Actually, it's 186,000. They concluded was what they called a conservative estimate. But yeah, I mean, that's just a peer-reviewed medical journal that is one of the highest impact journals in the world. And on the other side, we got Destiny, a guy who thinks that chauvinism is named after Derek Chauvin.
Hey, Chief. Maybe it's 5 million deaths, bro. Who knows?
An estimate? That is not what the actual...
Yeah, like, I mean, this is all he's doing here. All he's doing is just repeating shit. He isn't actually... He's not actually challenging it in any serious way because he hasn't got anything. So all he's doing, I mean, he's making his money right now on this particular stream. I mean, not right now, at the time relative to the stream, by just deliberately casting doubt on the number of people killed in an ongoing genocide that the U.S. is in control of.
Number is, please.
The way the Lancet came up with that estimate is pretty fucking retarded too. The way that they extrapolated that, I have to go back and check. I headlined this and scanned it, but it looked like.
Oh wow! He's literally going to try to Destiny, a guy who literally does not seem to know anything, has problems with how a leading peer-reviewed publication arrives at fucking mortality estimates. That's great.
That they had arrived at that estimate was literally fucking retarded. Man, the Lancet has posted some major fucking L's.
They're L's because they actually don't look good for Destiny.
They posted that the Bernie Sanders single health payer analysis too. I think that would.
Yeah, so it sits at an L because it contradicts what Destiny would like his audience to believe.
Was posted in the Lancet, I think. That was a dog shit fucking article as well. And I think the Lancet posted the vaccine causes autism shit a long time ago too. Was that Nature? I think that was the Lancet.
Yeah, and then they retracted it. Did they retract any of the articles that you just cited that are totally uncontroversial? Yeah, the guy faked the study. It actually, there was an investigation, and they ended up retracting it after it became clear that he faked the study. The only reason it made it through peer review is because he falsified his data. And they do not, they do not assume that somebody who's publishing to their journals is going to be falsifying their data without evidence that that's happening. Yeah, I know. That's all he's doing. And now he's like, okay, now he's gonna slag off the Lancet because the Lancet publishes things that contradict his beliefs.
But Jesus, anyway.
185,000 once the dust is settled. Right? That's an estimate. That is not what the actual number is, please. It is a conservative estimate. Because
yeah, that is exactly what the Lancet says.
Israel hasn't just killed 40,000 Palestinians. They've also destroyed the entirety of the Gaza Strip. Like the entirety of the Gaza Strip. Okay? Numbers on a board. Civilian versus enemy combatant per capita targeting.
Why was the healthcare thing bad?
Because Destiny doesn't like it.
Conservative estimate, yeah. That's actually a massive extrapolation, completely.
He doesn't know what an extrapolation is. An extrapolation can also be a conservative estimate. And so, God, this ghoul Hayden Kumquat goes 185,000. Not too bad, honestly, for a war. Out of 2 million people. Out of 2 million people in less than a year. I mean, that's 9% of the fucking population, and that's a conservative estimate.
The unknown.
Hey, Hail
what the actual
Satine.
data is. They just extrapolated that out.
Yeah, of course they fucking extrapolated their entire sophisticated statistical methods in order to do that. And first of all, okay, now his chat, he says the number is future projected deaths. He's misrepresented it. And that's not true. That is not what the Lancet said. But, oh, and Alberto Comín says America bad. Well, this would be trying to make the case for America good on hard mode right about now. I mean, but see, an extrapolation is necessarily what they're working with. There are proven statistical methods to do this. There are people who are experts in extrapolating mortality in situations like this. Though nobody's really seen a situation quite like this, not in a very long time, where an entire densely populated area is being wiped off the map.
Lancet thing for the Bernie Sanders thing was they had a bunch of amateur economists or whatever, or some dipshits that didn't know how to do any kind of real data analysis at all, came in and they gave an estimation for how much money single-payer healthcare would save in the United States.
Well, let's just remember that it's not even controversial that single-payer costs less money than this system. This system is the most expensive in the world, most expensive per capita, and gets the worst outcomes in the entire industrialized world. I mean, so he's pissed off that I'm sure it's amateur economists that a peer-reviewed journal like The Lancet would be relying on. And never mind that I think pretty much all economists are fucking amateurs. Although maybe what he means is that if they're not like worshippers of von Mises, they're amateurs.
And I think the way that they arrived at that estimate was they took how much money was spent on administration costs for Social Security. For Medicare. And they compared that to how much money was spent administratively versus how much was spent on healthcare for ordinary private insurance.
Yeah, and the thing is that the majority of the expenditure on private health insurance is administrative because the entire system is dedicated to denying claims.
And I think for Medicare, it's like 2 to 3% is spent on administrative costs. And for ordinary insurance, I think it's like 15 to 20% is spent on administrative costs. And they basically said, well, look, if we had single payer for the entire country, bam, look how much money we'd save. We're wasting.
Well, yeah, obviously, because the thing about Medicare is that it doesn't have those administrative costs, because most of those administrative costs are about profit maximization and all sorts of other bullshit. This, I mean, he does. Ugh.
Like 15 to 20%. It's just a drag on the economy. It's just being wasted on healthcare administration. But the massive, huge, terrible issue with that is that, one, the minor point is a lot of Medicare administrative costs are kind of subsumed with Social Security. You automatically enroll, they do identity tracking and all that. But
Well, yeah, exactly, which is exactly how a single-payer health system would work.
the huge one was healthcare consumption of old people is massive. Old people can...
Yeah, exactly. And the administrative, and on a population whose healthcare consumption, I hate that particular terminology, is unusually high. Oh, thank you. Is unusually high, and the administrative costs are that low, that actually makes the case even more strongly.
Consume so much healthcare. So obviously, a guy who's consuming healthcare at a massive rate is paying percentage-wise much less for administrative costs than he would for healthcare treatment, because the treatment is going to be so much more expensive, right? Like if you...
Well, also, it's just quite a bit less... Like, what the fuck is your point?
Look at somebody like me, 100% or 95% of all the money I've spent in my life on healthcare has been spent on administrative costs.
Yeah, because you're paying into a private system where the main thing that they're doing is finding ways to avoid paying your claims. That's what that administrative cost is. So, yeah, you are consuming way less healthcare, to use this bullshit terminology, and you're still paying out the ass on completely unnecessarily duplicative, worthless administration costs that only exist in order to screw you over, compared to somebody who say 70, 80, has serious health problems, sees a lot of doctors, and the administrative costs are lower in absolute terms because the entire system is not set up based on all this sort of all of the bullshit that private insurance companies do. But
I'm not a sick person. I'm young, right? But for an old person, the vast majority of the money that they're spending is going towards really expensive medical treatment. So, yeah.
Israel is infinitely more evil than Hamas ever could be. When you just straightforward look at the numbers, Israel has targeted significantly larger percentages of the civilian population and civilian infrastructure than Hamas has.
Yeah, I mean, and they don't even deny it.
Okay? That's just a fact. You cannot deny that. That is just an abject fact. Okay? They've also done this while having access to the Palestinian...
Did you read that study like the original paper? I don't know if we read the whole thing or parts of it.
It doesn't seem like he read any of it, actually.
Yeah, I think I went through it confidently enough that I'd feel pretty confident about my assessment there.
That is just an abject fact. Okay?
Wait, sorry, hold on. What was he saying? Hold
on. Ja, gute Nacht. Okay, what's he doing? He's typing things.
Please tell me, how is Hamas worse than Israel, or how is the suffering caused by both sides not equal?
How is it not equal? Like, you're fucking asking that? Tel Aviv's intact? Haifa's intact? Fucking, they're... you could ask that if 9% of the Israeli population were dead, and their major population centers were in ruins. But that's not the case. I mean, it's really easy. In fact, you can go on fucking TikTok where you can watch Israelis just gloating about the fact that the Palestinians have had their water cut off, whereas they haven't. Are you really gonna pretend that it's equal?
You would just never, ever, ever measure it in just the civilian casualties. You would just never do that.
Why wouldn't you? Why isn't that an important... that seems like an important metric. I mean, I can understand why you wouldn't do it in this particular case, Destiny, because you would have a really hard time arguing that Israel was somehow better than the Palestinian resistance on that basis.
It just doesn't make any sense. You always take into account like motivations and stuff at play here, rather.
Well, okay, so the motivation is explicitly to genocide a colonized population, and or at the very least to kick them off of their land in order to maintain a racist colonial regime.
Rather than just saying like who killed more. Like if you think about like good guys or bad guys.
Oh wow, we're gonna get some moral philosophy from fucking Steve Bonnell.
In like World War II, you would never think like, well, the Nazis were the bad guys because they killed way more people than.
Well, I mean, it's not a bad starting point. Surely. Like, why wouldn't you think that? Why wouldn't that be at least part of the argument?
You know, the Allies and the U.S. and the Allies. Who killed way less people. You would never think about it that way. You just don't ever analyze it.
Who's you? You wouldn't think about that. And why wouldn't you think about that? Like, are you going to explain why that doesn't matter to you? Are you just going to say that? I mean, I understand that he seems to have gotten a lot of his technique from, like, fucking Scalia, the horrible former Supreme Court Justice. Deeply overrated man. Who, I think it was Dahlia Lithwick described his main, like, technique, Scalia's this is, as stating his points in a way designed to make it sound as if he thinks anyone who disagrees would have to be a complete dipshit. That's like literally all he's doing here. He's like, oh, well, obviously you're not going to do it based on how many innocent civilians are killed to decide who's good and who is evil. And it's like, why not?
Any conflict like that ever. Yeah. The reason why people generally would say Hamas are the bad guys is because Hamas operates in a way where they try to maximize the civilian casualties.
No, they don't. No, they absolutely don't. And that would not be a point of distinction here in a genocide where Israel has explicitly done everything they can in order to make it impossible for the Gaza Strip to sustain the life of the 2 million people there.
Period. That means on both sides, their own and on the other side, they conduct themselves in ways that they don't even pretend to try to conform to any of the internationally recognized rules of war.
Oh, well, except for the bit where, if you actually look at what the resistance have been doing, the things they're attacking, the targets of their attacks have been tanks, armored personnel carriers, IDF positions, classic fucking military targets. Whereas, if you look at the targets that Israel openly acknowledges, it's hospitals, it's bomb shelters, it's other internationally protected facilities where people are supposed to be able to flee and be safe. Or it's tent encampments. Like, what the fuck is he saying?
It seems like their goal, although it's hard to know 100%, but it kind of seems like their goal is the total destruction of Israel as a country.
What does that mean? I mean, if you mean that they would first of all, let's remember, starting in 2008, Hamas's position has been that they would accept a permanent ceasefire on the internationally recognized 1967 borders. That has been their position for a very long time now. But apart from that, like, what is this language, like, Zionists love to use this. It'll be like the destruction of Israel, because they want to make it sound like they're talking about the destruction of the population, as opposed to the destruction of the regime. Like, the apartheid regime in South Africa was also destroyed. Lots of states get destroyed. That doesn't necessarily mean the population goes with them. It means that some other system replaces them.
Yeah, so the kind of bad, not the best, kind of not good. Yeah, Israel seems more reasonable than Hamas, but
Seems more reasonable than Hamas based on what exactly? You're just gonna say that, are you?
Civilian population and civilian infrastructure than Hamas has. Okay, that's just a fact. You cannot deny that. That is just an abject fact. Okay.
Wait, what is? I'm sorry, I keep missing.
They've also done it. Okay. Numbers on a board: civilian versus enemy combatant per capita targeting. Israel is infinitely more evil than Hamas ever could.
Civilian versus enemy per capita targeting. That I don't think he's right there at all. You just have to.
Well, yeah, he is actually right. But I'm still waiting to hear Destiny explain how he decides who's evil. If he doesn't think that the number of defenseless people somebody murders is a relevant data point.
I think he's just adding these words on because he saw it in Abby's posts maybe on Twitter, but I don't know why he's.
When you just straightforward look at the numbers, Israel has targeted significantly larger percentages of the civilian population and civilian infrastructure than Hamas has. Okay, that's just a fact. You cannot deny that. That is just an abject fact. Okay.
To be clear, I don't actually think that's an abject fact. I don't know.
I mean, of course you don't think it's an abject fact, but you're hedging your bets by saying that wouldn't actually matter to you in deciding whether they're evil or not, and deciding who the bad guy is. But yeah, I mean, he's absolutely not wrong, and it's not even seriously debatable. Because, again, you can just look at Israel. You look at fucking Tel Aviv. You look at the cities. To even be comparable. First of all, the Palestinian resistance, and even if you include their allies in the region, if you include Hezbollah, if you include Yemen, you still do not have the level of destructive capability that is being visited on the Palestinians. They literally would not, with the weapons they have, be able to inflict that level of destruction on Israel, even if they wanted to. And they've made it clear they're targeting military. I mean, like Hezbollah's policy is they say, as long as if you target military, we'll target military. If you target our, Lebanese civilians, then we may actually reconsider that. The Palestinian resistance in Gaza have made a point of letting Israeli medevac missions proceed undisturbed. There's footage of it. We know that they can take out those helicopters, especially when they're taking off. We also know that they are not doing it even when they are well within range. They are literally giving more consideration to Israeli military medical services than Israel gives to Palestinian civilian health services.
I don't know where he gets that from. Israel has missile interception systems or rocket interception systems, and Hamas doesn't. That's why.
Yeah, and that system doesn't work. That system never really worked. Now it really doesn't work.
Like Israel's infrastructure survives, not because Hamas doesn't target it.
Well, no, it is because they don't target it, and also because they really are not in a position to do that kind of damage. Like the weapons that the rockets that they send over Israel, overwhelmingly, don't even have warheads. It has been described by the Israelis at times as symbolic. They do not do that kind of damage even when they hit.
But because Israel intercepts it, but
actually, and Israel isn't intercepting them now, because the Iron Dome system is at the point where it Iron Don't, because the resistance, like Hezbollah in particular, have been destroying Iron Dome batteries, and at this point, actually, they all know how to get around it. There is a very established method that has worked, which is you fill the sky with these drones that are one-way drones. They're specifically meant to be intercepted. They're just cheap-ass fiberglass drones. You fill the sky with those so that fucking Iron Dome, fires its load. And then in the second wave, you send the actual attack.
They've also done this while having access to the Palestinian civilian registry. As in, they know where every Palestinian is. They have 24/7 around-the-clock surveillance. These are things that the Palestinian resistance groups did not have in terms of their targeting capabilities. They also did not have an air force. They did not.
That's a lie. That's a fucking lie.
What's the lie? Are you saying the Palestinians have an air force? What, you talking about the fucking paragliders?
When the invaders went to the kibbutzes, they knew that there were civilians there. They had the layouts ready for these kibbutzes.
There's actually no evidence of that. In fact, one of the points that has been made in the subsequent investigations is that the Palestinians defeated the Gaza division, which he is, of course, silent about, because we're not supposed to talk about the fact that it was a huge military victory against a military target. The fucking the ghetto guard division of the IDF, the Gaza division, that they completely shit the bed and were actually out of commission within less than an hour. In fact, by some reckonings, less than half an hour. Like, literally, they beat an entire Israeli division in less time than it takes to get a pizza delivered. And so what a lot of the reconstructions have found is that most likely they didn't know what the hell to do with themselves. They expected they were going to spend the entire day fighting the Gaza division, and instead the Gaza division folded like a fucking house of cards, and they weren't sure what exactly to do. They hadn't really had plans. We have it's worth noting, we do have their actual written operational orders. Those were leaked a couple of weeks ago. And all they say about these settlements, the kibbutzim, is that optionally, they should raise the flags of Arab countries over them as a way to encourage Arab countries to join in solidarity. Like, there was absolutely nothing indicating that these settlements were targets at all, except in a purely symbolic way.
You could literally stand and see where in Kfar Aza, I think, you can see where like Hamas would stand on top of a garage or on top of like the armory where the weapons are stored, and they would just shoot.
The armory where the weapons are stored. So what does that tell you? There's an armory where weapons are stored. Does that enter into your discussion? Because I mean, when you're talking about who's a combatant and it's Palestinians, then I somehow think that a Palestinian village that had an armory in the middle of it, you probably would not consider civilian.
People coming out of their homes or shoot people that are on their way to try to like gear up.
So what we're talking, the thing is that when people pick up arms and join an armed conflict, then they are combatants. In fact, Israel takes it further. I mean, under international humanitarian law, the way it works is that if members of the civilian population who aren't in any kind of regular army take part in hostilities, they can be treated as combatants for the duration of their participation in hostilities, but not when they're not actively participating in hostilities. But with the way Israel handles this, completely illegally, it's a war crime, but it's a war crime that they do. It is their standard, and I don't think that, I mean, in a situation like this, where there is no legal accountability for anything Israel does, that the population that is being occupied by Israel has probably a better claim than most to use the same standards that are being used against them, even though those standards are fucked up. But Israel's standard is, if you're a member of the civilian population and you have ever participated in hostilities, and that includes little kids throwing stones at tanks, then you are always a legitimate military objective no matter what you're doing, even if you're asleep in your fucking bed.
see everything like it wasn't just random. They weren't like, oh shit, like oh no, we just happened to come across this kibbutz. I can't believe that. Like they knew where to go. They had this like pretty well planned out.
No, actually, this is literally not true. This is literally not true. They did not even expect. They did their success completely confused the hell out of them. This has been a theme. The overestimation of the military prowess of the IDF. That's something that like fighters in interviews have commented on.
Have these offensive weapons capabilities in general, right? And now there's a polio outbreak in Gaza. I mean, it's a fresh hell. It is a genocide, right? She then
polio outbreak too. Damn, there's all sorts of shit going on down there.
Wow, yeah, isn't it fucking hilarious? They'd eradicated polio thanks to the Palestinian health authorities, which have been destroyed, and the UN, which has been systematically targeted as well. And now Israel and the US have brought back polio to a population who are being systematically starved to death and are mostly stuck living in fucking makeshift tents, which then get bombed from the air with bunker busters. Hey, that's fucking hilarious, isn't it, Destiny? You're a wonderful guy. Destiny's a fucking great guy. This is somebody that people should totally be listening to when he explains why his criteria for deciding who the bad guys are.
Nickel Pickle, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships.
Ugh.
Okay, and then what was the second clip?
no longer even using the veiled threats. Okay? But the IDF aren't hiding inside of schools and hospitals. Yes, they are. What are you talking about?
Tour kibbutz? Yeah, we went to Sderot as a city, and then we went to...
he went on the Israeli propaganda tour. These, those settlements are a closed military zone. You literally can't go to them without the Israeli military authorities giving you a guided tour. They have had complete control over everything in that area ever since the area was evacuated and became part of Israel's buffer zone. So he went on a propaganda tour guided by the Israeli government, and so that he thinks he's clever. I mean, it's funny how he recently, not recently, it was a few months ago, was acting like it was so absurd to suggest that maybe he was getting paid to promote Israeli propaganda. But he literally accepted a guided tour that not everybody can get from the Israeli government, specifically intended to spread propaganda about October 7th. I'd be interested to know if he paid for that, or whether they footed the bill, in which case, yes, he has been paid to spread propaganda.
I think it was one of the ones.
The IDF headquarters is quite literally next to a fucking mall in Tel Aviv. The fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, he's quite right.
That has to do with anything. I think he's talking about the place with the helicopter landing pad. I think we saw this.
Well, he's talking about the fact that Israel can't blame Palestinians for the fact that they're so completely tightly put together that the resistance cannot supposedly blends in with the civilian population, which actually they don't. They're in they're in tunnels, which is a big part of why Israel has not actually gone after them, because they don't want to fight in tunnels. It's too much ricochet, there's too little air, they don't know where the fucking tunnels go, it's just an ambush waiting to happen. But the thing is, Israel, who have had more options about city planning than Palestinians have had since 1948, have specifically chosen to put crucial military facilities, totally legitimate military objectives, right in the middle of residential areas. Unit 8200, which was a recent attack from Hezbollah, though it's like Israel's NSA, is also in the middle of a fairly well-populated area. It's on the periphery of Tel Aviv.
Helicopter, IDF, landing pad, Tel Aviv. Fuck, what's the name of the building I'm thinking of? It's got two big things.
Well, what he's talking about is the literal Ministry of Defense.
Is on both sides of it.
Okay, Yovel, there's a meme. Okay, Yovel, there's a meme that goes online that says the IDF uses human shields as well.
Well, they don't use human shields as well. They're the only ones documented to use human shields. And they overwhelmingly use Palestinians as human shields. So now Loserbox is going to try to... it's going to try to debunk the location of the Israeli Ministry of Defense?
This is when we went to one of the protests. This was funny watching this protest in person. I'll go over this when we go over everything.
Well, it's hilarious. Like, this motherfucker accuses other people of being insulated, of not giving a fuck because they're insulated from the comments. From the consequences. That is his brand. Not giving a fuck because he's insulated from the human consequences.
The cops were like antagonizing protesters with their horses and with mace for no reason. But if you were there at the protesters all sit and they try to get in front of the horses so that they can't move, so that they can like intentionally basically bait out the cops to try to attack them.
Linking civilian infrastructure with military, right? And the argument they say is that this building over here, the command center, is
that's
next to a shopping center, right? It's too close to a shopping center.
Oh, it's right in the middle of a residential area. Yeah, this is a densely populated civilian area that he's in. This is the middle of Tel Aviv.
This is the shopping center.
Yeah, it's across the fucking street. That's exactly the point. Well, like, literally, what are you trying to do, Loserbox? You're trying to say that across the street isn't near? You know how many people live within a fucking 1 mile radius of that place?
It's in between these two buildings. There's like a road that goes underneath.
Ooh, wow, there's like a dual carriageway nearby. That totally makes it different.
Another road, and then some trees. Look at that.
Is it close?
Wow, there's some trees too, chap. There's some trees. That totally changes it. That makes it totally okay to put a major military target in the middle of a residential area in a densely populated city.
Is it not close? That really doesn't matter. But
yes, it actually does matter. It does fucking matter. Because that command center is a legitimate military objective. And look at all the civilians right here. If somebody weren't to attack that legitimate military objective, all those people would be at risk. That is why it is often very common to keep those sorts of objectives away from populated areas. But, when we talk about human shields, this is the least of it, really. Because, Israel just they have an open policy, an openly acknowledged policy. It's called the neighbor procedure of using Palestinians as human shields. It's been documented. They don't even really deny it.
The thing is that, oh, hey, look, it's me. The thing is that if you, the reason why you use human shields, the reason why you co-locate military and civilian objectives is because you expect to gain some sort of advantage from it.
Yeah, and now he's going to debunk himself in real time and accidentally debunk Israel's propaganda, because the military advantage you expect to get from that is that the other side won't attack an internationally protected site, like a hospital or a school or something like that. But the problem is, Israel has never given a shit about that. They have always attacked schools and hospitals, so literally nobody would think that there was a tactical advantage to putting anything military in a hospital, because they've been attacking hospitals all along. That's not a new thing since October 7th. That's gone on for decades.
Israel doesn't gain any advantage from it because Hamas kills civilians. So it's almost definitionally impossible for Israel to use human shields, because that wouldn't protect them from being attacked.
Wait, okay. Now do that with the Palestinians. And if that wouldn't protect them from being attacked, why? See, I think what protects them from being attacked in the case of Tel Aviv is precisely that none of the people likely to attack them are actually in a position to do anything on that scale, and also they have been sticking to military objectives.
It almost definitionally doesn't even work, because they know that, right? You're never thinking as an Israeli soldier, like, fuck, if I just run into this hospital, there's no way Hamas is going to attack me here.
Well, and actually, this is actually like darkly comical, because he really does not need to go here, because he is actually debunking the propaganda about alleged use of human shields by the Palestinians, which again, no evidence has ever been provided.
Doesn't make any sense.
The fuck are you talking about? There's a higher combatant density inside of Israel than there is in fucking Gaza. The entire country is a reservist. They've all served in the military. Far more people inside of Israel have served in the IDF per capita than people inside of Gaza have.
This should be auto ban. Fuck.
What should be auto ban? Now I'm curious.
Inside of Israel have served in the IDF per capita than people inside of Gaza have.
This should be auto ban. Fuck. I want to say really, really, really bad things that would get me banned from every single platform for him making this comment.
Good. Okay, now I'm really hoping that let's hope that happens, actually, chat. I can't even see where the comment is.
The fact that he will never talk about how many militants there are in the Palestinian death tolls,
because the number is tiny and is generally recognized to be tiny. On the other hand, if you use Israel's figures on this, their figures just happen to be roughly identical to the number of male persons killed of any age.
Consider, so he wants every single Jewish person in Israel should be killed, right? Hassan is advocating for the murder of every single Jew inside Israel, because all of them are former IDF, and I guess all of them are fair targets.
No, he wasn't saying that at all. It's interesting that you immediately go there, but that isn't what he was saying.
Because it's mandatory conscription or whatever. But that's fine. Hassan seems like the kind of guy who would support like mass rape and murder and then cover up for it constantly.
Oh, you're the one who's supporting mass rape and murder and covering up for it. You're literally the one who's doing that.
This is such an unhinged statement to make. This is also why, by the way,
all he said was there are probably more combatants percentage-wise within Israeli society than in Palestinian society. He didn't draw a conclusion from that. You're putting the conclusion in his mouth.
This is why Jews or Israelis never, ever, ever, ever trust these types of people when they say, "Oh, we're just looking out for Palestinians."
Wait, just don't talk about fucking Jews or Israelis, because most of us aren't Israelis. And what does he mean? Trust this sort of people? What, fucking Twitch streamers? Yeah, or is he saying people of fucking Middle Eastern descent? Is that what he's saying? I have a feeling that might be what he's saying.
We're not anti-Jew, we're just anti-Zionist. And by
anti-Zionist,
we just mean the most far-right ones.
Why just the most far-right ones? Zionism sucks shit in all forms. Like, Zionism is a shitty ideology. It should be opposed. And now he's like equating Jews and Zionists, which is anti-Semitic, which is not surprising from him.
They never believe you, and they never will believe you. And if I was Jewish, I wouldn't believe you.
I am Jewish, and I believe him. I mean, I'm somehow reminded of something that Adolf Eichmann said when he was in questioning during his trial in Jerusalem. He said, "If I were born Jewish, I would be a fanatical Zionist." And somehow I'm just being reminded of that by this vibe that Destiny's on here.
If I was Jewish, I would think the whole world is anti-Semitic. When people like this get coverage by Jeff Bezos and Amazon to make the most insane fucking statements on Twitch and have...
Yeah, he's saying factual things. Why can't he be censored? Like, this is coming from a guy who justified a white nationalist mass shooter.
Free reign of that platform and all the young minds there and all the other streamers there who were too cucked out to ever oppose him. This is an unhinged fucking statement. This is an unhinged statement.
All he said was there are probably more combatants by percentage in Israeli society than in Palestinian society. Everything else is a conclusion Destiny is putting in his mouth. I'm new here, no bully, it says something that is explicitly something Israeli officials have explicitly said. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to read it out because it is so fucking vile. But if you look just above Destiny's fucked up head, you will find a comment from I'm new here, no bully, that he's like apparently saying is some sort of reductio ad absurdum, but it is actually something that Israelis often say. I mean, there's like literally a t-shirt you can buy in Israel. It is a picture of a Palestinian woman, pregnant, in crosshairs. And it says, 1 shot, 2 kills. I mean, and it's apparently rather popular.
All served in the military. Far more people inside of Israel have served in the IDF per capita than people inside of Gaza have served in any of the armed wings of Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad or any other armed factions. So, no, you're absolutely wrong on this. There's no way to argue around this point. Okay? The notion that, like, Israel must target schools...
Now that Hate Watcher 68 is making up pogroms in Toronto that never happened.
Because Hamas is hiding there is bullshit anyway.
One of the largest battles that occurred was that 2-week siege on Al-Shifa, by the way. But maybe...
Yeah, that wasn't a battle, though. There was only one side shooting. Like, is the idea that if Israel is attacking it, it must be military? I mean, they left a huge mass grave after they destroyed Al-Shifa. They came up with zero evidence of anything untoward going on there, despite the fact that they were in complete control of the facility, which they turned into a torture and execution center. They could have rigged up any bullshit they wanted in that time. They didn't. They came up with the most ridiculous attempts at evidence. Like, remember the calendar? Where there was a list, there is a terror list. It is a list of terrorists. One of them is Monday. The other one is Tuesday. The other one is Wednesday. I guess that Adam's family are terrorists. You know, I mean, it's fucking bullshit. Is he about to say... What I think he's about to say.
He just took the idea of 2 weeks to blow up all the civilians. Who knows?
That is exactly what they released footage of them fucking doing it.
People they captured that they said were soldiers. Maybe that was all a meme. Maybe none of them are soldiers, and they would probably say Israel lies about it anyway.
Well, that would be so weird if Israel lied about things. I mean, I love how like Destiny, Israel can say fucking anything, and he will believe it. If Palestinians say anything, it doesn't even matter how well documented it is, it has to be a lie. Oh god, the fake nurse actress. That was so wild. You know she's a telenovela actress? Claiming to work at Al-Shifa? I mean, like, they didn't even try to, like, come up with convincing fakes. Yeah, I'd forgotten all about the fake nurse. That was wild. I mean, yeah, the fake audio where they didn't even bother to do, like, the bare minimum of non-insulting fakery, which would have been to play it so it had a single audio source and re-record it. I mean...
Just wanted more hostages and rape victims, I guess.
It's not correct. It's completely incorrect. That's precisely the reason why they keep saying there's a command and control center under this hospital, so we have to blow it up. And then there's no command and control center. So then they go, oh, the command and control center actually moved to the other.
There were huge tunnels that were found under.
No, there weren't. There literally weren't. There were no tunnels found.
Al-Shifa Hospital, and there were tunnels that seemed to be actively maintained with.
What's that mean?
Wiring and stuff running underneath them. There's also.
Yeah, this is not true. Like there was one video that that Israel released that claimed to show a tunnel. Okay, well I know there was another one, and it was a cesspit. It was literally where the shite goes to collect. I mean, and the other one they claimed this is totally unedited footage. I mean, which was just insulting because you could tell it wasn't even shot with all the same camera. Like the minute it goes into this hole in the ground, it goes from extremely clear, like 4K image quality, clearly being shot by a drone. Clearly being shot by a drone, with certain very specific markings, like rangefinder focus markings on the screen. And then the minute it goes inside, it switches and the resolution changes. The camera suddenly becomes extremely bumpy. You know, not a drone at all. And the markings, the focus markings are totally different on the screen. Like, it was literally not even the same camera. And they call that unedited. So it's not actually clear where the hell that footage came from. What is clear is that it was not what it claimed to be. They never found any fucking evidence of any of this.
Also a big one found underneath an UNRWA building that people operated directly out of, but okay.
No, they actually didn't. They claimed to, but when Israel claims something, he just takes it as fact.
Our hospital, we got to blow it up. Then there's no command and control center. So what are we talking about? These are outdated lies that have been proven to be lies over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah, Destiny, you're like, not only is this bullshit, this is vintage bullshit. We thought we were going to be looking at vintage bullshit with that video, What If the Communists Take Over from 1957? This is already vintage bullshit. This bullshit is like so vintage it's retro. Because this is like the beginning of this year this stuff got debunked.
Genuinely curious, didn't they find tunnels and stuff in hospitals? They did. But a tunnel...
He's going to say, oh shit, never mind, fuck. Now I know what he's going to say. There are two ways to get around this. The first way is to say, well, Israel built them. That's why they know they're there. And then the second way to get around it is to say that the tunnels are just there for safety reasons and they're not actually...
Well, I mean, there's the other way, which is there's no evidence that there are any tunnels. I mean, it's true that under Al-Shifa there were some like basement areas that Israel built. That's true. But in terms of tunnels, as in like resistance tunnels, no, there weren't any. Israel didn't find any, and they didn't show any evidence of any.
used by militants. There's no proof of that, but we'll see.
I'm curious, didn't they find tunnels and stuff in hospitals? They did. But a tunnel system does not mean that it's an operational command and control center. And as a matter of fact, that's precisely what they found under the major hospital in Gaza that they claimed had a command and control center.
Yeah, they found fuck all.
Okay. I mean, they did find...
Which is what... Oh, there was also the AK-47 in the MRI suite. That was just sort of lying around as you do. Because, I mean, if there's one place you want to have a heavy metal object full of other smaller piercing metal object, it's an MRI suite, because that way you can get impaled on it.
And things under here, but these people expected to see like a whole ass fucking NASA computer room, and they were upset when there were only like laptops and guns, but okay.
Well, I mean, it isn't... you believe everything Israel says, Destiny, and you think that people shouldn't be disappointed when what Israel claims to have found is not even comparable to what with the footage that they faked together in order to make it look like they found something?
Half of the tunnel system was already built with Israel's supervision.
There you go.
Because hospitals do have tunnel systems under them, of course. But regardless, I thought they actually had their command centers in hospitals.
Hassan wanted to see videos of like the fucking bat cave. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Israel claimed to have published videos of it, and they were badly edited, and it was not clear what they were actually of. I mean, at one point they released footage they claimed was them fighting in a tunnel, and then it turned out to be a training video. It wasn't even a cache of weapons. Hey, Raven G. It wasn't even a cache of weapons. It was an AK-47. It was one weapon. Literally just the one. I mean, Destiny is... Wow, he's such a piece of shit. I mean, all he's doing here is believing every single thing that Israel says, no matter how implausible. Except when the Israeli media says something that actually debunks a talking point that he likes to use. But I've noticed it is now time for me to start wrapping up. Thank you to everyone who joined. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I will be back tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and I look forward to seeing you there. Meanwhile, if you'd like to keep in touch in between streams, there's a Discord link, and you can click on it and join the Discord and make suggestions and have ideas and chat with people and chat with me and stuff and all sorts of cool shit. But so feel free to join in there, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a good night and fuck Destiny.